Today we start the slider, most important topic oral physiology and oral histology. Saliva मेनली जो है आप जो oral physiology है applied oral physiology क्रिस्टोफर लेवाइल बुक का नेम है जिसमें से saliva आपने कवर करना है. Saliva. What is the saliva? Thin, watery, slightly viscous fluid secreted saliva में useful composition and secretion of saliva following. Composition water 94 to 99.5%, solids 0.5 to 0.6%. Two types of the organic and inorganic substances. Inorganic substances glycoproteins जिसमें आपके enzymes आ जाते हैं अल्फा मीलेज लाइसोजाइम लैक्टो पेरोक्सीडेज कैलिक्रन एस्ट्रेस एसिड phosphase lactofen, blood clotting factors, hormones, parotin secretory immunoglobulin A, G, and immunoglobulin M. Organic substances sodium, calcium, chloride, bicarbonate, phosphate, potassium, less amounts fluoride, magnesium, and iodine. आपको जो है आपके एमसीक्यूज में वाइवा में आपके स्लाइवा कंपोजिशन पूछी जाती है. दिस इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक ऑफ द स्लाइवा. More than of saliva is secreted per day. Specific cavity 1.002 to 1.008, pH 6.2, 7.6, and 6.7, water 99.4% unstimulated and 99.5% stimulated, solids 0.6% unstimulated and 0.5% stimulated. MCQs में ये आपके इसमें आपके स्पेसिफिक ग्रेविटी पीएच वाटर सॉलिड्स पूछा जाता है. Salivary flow rate. Normal salivary flow rate 0.3 milliliter per minute unstimulated, 0.0, 5.0 stimulated, exhibited the diurnal and seasonal variations, peak mid afternoon, spring, even during sleep flow. Stimulated flow holds 0.2 to 4 milliliter per minute. The mandibular 0.1 to milliliter per minute. Carotid gland 0.04 milliliter per minute. Stimulation hold 2.0, 5.0 milliliter per minute. The mandibular gram 0.8 milliliter per minute. Carotid gland 1.0, 2.0 milliliter per minute. Effect of the feeding on the salivary secretions. Meal during this period. Carotid glands water saliva rich in enzymes such as amylase, proteins such as purine-rich proteins and other glycoproteins. Some mandibular glands, in addition to above component, contains highly glycosalted substances called mucin. Sublingual glands are viscous, rich in saliva. Although plasma cells and duct cells may provide a minor contribution to the salivary protein content, the acinar cells are primarily responsible. The quantity of salivary protein increases with the flow rate, the average for the protein being 2.3 plus minus 1.7 gram per liter, submandibular 1.2 plus minus 0.8 per liter, and sublingual 2.6 plus minus 0.70 gram per liter. Serum proteins, the serum proteins present in saliva may amount to 20% including aminoglobulin G, aminoglobulin M, and aminoglobulin A, in addition to albumin and some A and B globulins. Although serum albumin estimations range from 1 to 10% of total protein, the concentrations decreases with increased flow rates. Salivary A globulins are in the different forms and concentrations from those in the blood. In fact, these globulins are probably synthesized with the glands themselves, a feature that may also apply to some of the salivary albumin. Secretory immunoglobulin A is synthesized by the plasma cells within the glands in addition to the mucosal epithelial cells. Secretory immunoglobulin A is therefore different from plasma immunoglobulin A due to a non-lymphoid derived glycoprotein designated as the secretory component. This makes the secretory immunoglobulin A more resistant to enzymic proteolysis. Secretory immunoglobulin A comprises 90% of the total parotid immunoglobulin A and 85% of whole saliva immunoglobulin A, 30 to 35% of which is derived from the minor glands. This secretory immunoglobulin A exhibits three possible functions. Number one, in the inhibition of bacterial colonization, probably by agglutination. Second is binding to specific bacterial antigens involved with adherence. Third is the affecting specific enzymes essential for bacterial metabolism. Proteins synthesized within the glands, a number of proteins analogous to those found in the blood may be detected in saliva, including activated factor, crispatase factors, and factor 8, anti-anophilic globulin, and 4 is the platelet factors. Organic components, mucins, glycoproteins, proteins go with many oligosaccharide side chains attached by O-glycosidic bonding. Two major mucins, aminoglobulin Mg1 and Mg2. The functions are lubrication, hydrophilic resist dehydration. Amylase is 30% of total protein in parotid saliva. Hydrolyzes alpha 1 to 4 bonds of starches such as amylase and amylopectin. Amylase, approximately 30% of the protein found in saliva, is amylase with the submandibular amylase activity being only about 20% of that in the parotid. There's very little amylase activity in the sublingual and minor glandular secretions. Amylase typin is calcium dependent and is activated by chloride ions. These enzymes hydrolyze cook starch to maltose, and the primary action being the disruption of the A1 to 4 glycosidic linkage. The enzymic activity is limited since the enzyme is steadily inactivated by a pH of 4 or less. Amylase activity may still continue in the center of a bolus if protected from the acidic gastric environment. A-amylase is probably synthesized as the glycosylated form and modified by the removal of carbohydrate are sequential diminutions after transcription or secretion. The concentration of A-amylase increases with the rate of salivary secretion. Second enzyme is the lysozyme. Lysozyme is present in all major body fluids but occurs at high concentrations in saliva. in addition to lacrimal fluid and nasal and bronchial secretions. The concentration of lysozyme is greater in some mandibular saliva than of the parotid. Lysozyme act on the B1,4 bond between N-acetylmuric acid and N-acetylglucosamine in the gram-positive bacterial cell wall component peptidoglycan 17, leading to its subsequent disruption and microbial death. Lysozyme may infect biodiatic only in environments which flux in pH and ionic strength. Lysozyme may also bactericidal in the absence of lysis, in addition to inhibiting mucosal colonization by microbial aggregation. Acid phosphates, cholinesterase, and ribonuclease, these enzymes are present in similar concentrations in and submandibular saliva. Is phosphate having an optimum pH of 4.0. Lipase, a specific lipase occurs in parotid saliva. Peroxidase, an antibacterial peroxidase system, occurs in parotid saliva. In addition to milk and tears and comprises lactoperoxides, thiacinate, and hydrogen peroxide. This system inhibits growth and acid production of a variety of microorganisms, including streptococci, lactobacilli, fungi, and enteric bacteria. Although lactoperoxidase and thiacinate are normal salivary constituents, uh, hydrogen peroxide is generated by a number of oral microorganisms. Lactoperoxidase catalyzes thiacinate oxidation by hydrogen peroxide, resulting in the formation of a number of substances, including hypothiacinate, which oxidize bacterial enzymes containing sensitive thiol groups. Lactoperoxidase also retain activity when absorbed on hydroxyapatite and salivary sediment, thereby protecting the enamel surface. Helichrane splits serum B globulin into bradykinin, which then passes back into the gland and into the blood vessels. Helichrane may therefore cause functional vasodilation to supply an actively secreting gland. Hormones, two hormones-like substances have been described in saliva, palatine, which facilitates calcification and helps to maintain serum calcium levels, and the nerve growth factor that affects growth and development of sympathetic nerve fibers. And हार्मोन्स के बारे में जो है आपके वाइवा में क्वेश्चंस पूछा जाता है कि व्हाट आर द टाइप्स ऑफ हार्मोन्स ठीक है टू हार्मोन्स लाइक सब्सटेंसेस in saliva perotin which facilitates the calcification and helps to the maintain the serum calcium levels and the nerve growth factor that affect the growth and development of sympathetic nerve fiber. This is a carbohydrate. In addition to carbohydrates bound to proteins, protein saliva also contains glucose at a similar concentration in the blood. In addition to glucose, some animal saliva also contains hexose and fructose, small amounts of hexosamine and salicylic acid. Lineage enzymes, different enzymes are vast enzymatic has been detected in saliva, including proteases, aminopeptides, carbohydrate or carboxypeptides, lipases, ureas, glucoronidase, hyaluronidase, nucleosidase, esterases, cholinesterase, phosphates, sulfates, acid and alkaline ribonucleases. Proteins and glycoproteins, the majority of salivary proteins contain a large uh, portion of carbohydrate in their molecules, including galactose, hexosamine, and fructose. Proline, glycine, and glutamic acid comprise the major amino acid components. These negatively charged proteins probably interact with the positively charged calcium on hydroxyapatite surfaces. They also probably contribute to the enamel pellicle, in addition to contributing to enamel remineralization and preventing tooth surface bacterial colonization. Blood group substances, the carbohydrate protein complex is present on the cell membranes of red blood corpuscles are characterized by the presence of absence of two antigens, A and B, that differ in their terminal sugar chains. Approximately 80% of the population exhibit the antigens corresponding to their blood groups A or the glycoprotein H substance, which lacks the terminal polysaccharide chains. Other blood group antigens inform the blood fluids and adsorbs to the surface of red blood corpuscles. In presence of saliva does not necessarily indicate a salivary origin. Lysozyme is present in all major body fluids but occurs at high concentrations in saliva. In addition to lacrimal fluid and nasal and bronchial secretions, the concentration of lysozyme is greater in some mandibular saliva than that of the parietal. Lysozyme acts on the B14 bond between N-acetylmalic acid and N-acetylglucosamine in the gram-positive bacterial cell wall component peptidoglycan, leading to its subsequent disruption and microbial death. Lysosome may affect in lytic-only environments which flux in pH and ionic strength. Lysosome may also be bactericidal in the absence of lysis, in addition to inhibiting mucosal colonization by microbial aggregation. Lipase, a specific lipase occurs in clotted saliva. Peroxidase, an antibacterial peroxidase system occurs in clotted saliva. In addition to milk and tears and comprises lactoperoxide, thiocyanate, and hydrogen peroxide. System inhibits growth and acid production of variety of microorganisms, including streptococci, lactobacilli, fungi, and enteric bacteria. Although lactoperoxidase and thiocyanate are normal salivary constituents, hydrogen peroxidase is generated by a number of oral microorganisms. Lactoperoxidase catalyzes thiocyanate oxidation by hydrogen peroxide, resulting in the formation of a number of substances, including uh, hypothiocyanate. Oxidases bacterial enzymes containing sensitive thiol groups. Lactoperoxidase also retain activity when absorbed on the hydroxyapatite and the salivary sediment, thereby protecting the enamel surface. Liquid saliva contains small quantities of diglyceride, triglycerides, cholesterol, and cholesterol esters and phospholipids, in addition to corticosteroids, mainly cortisol. These liquids may play a role in salivary protein binding bacterial absorption to appetite and block microbial aggregation. Nitrogen containing compounds, nine different amino acids have been found in the protein saliva, 12 in submandibular and 18 in whole saliva. Many of these are probably derived from microbial protein degradation. Slaviuria and uric acid concentrations appear directly correlated with those of the blood. Citrate and lactate arise from carbohydrates metabolism, with lactate in particular increasing after food intake. Most of the water-soluble vitamins have been found in saliva. Lactose is an iron-binding protein synthesized by the glandular cells and polymorphonucleocytes. The bactericidal effect of lactoferrin is blocked by the secretory aminoglobulin A and by prior saturation with iron. Consequently, lactoferrin functions with other antimicrobial agents, for example, lysozyme and lactoperoxidase, to monitor the oral microbial uh, inorganic substances. The ions found in all physiological fluids are also present in saliva. Evident concentrations codified by saliva secretion. Number one is the sodium. Sodium ions are present in eosinophil fluid at similar concentration to extracellular fluid, although there is some resorption in the striated ducts. Testing saliva contains only traces of sodium ions, although the concentration increasing with the salivary secretion. There is a less time available for resorption in rapid salivary secretion. Potassium, except for the terminal duct, potassium is pumped into salivary secretion so that the concentration is partly dependent upon the secretion rate. The chloride concentration in acinar secretions mirrors that of plasma, where subsequently chloride is passively reabsorbed along with sodium in the striated. Also, as the salivary flow rate increases, bicarbonate is produced and actively transported into saliva. This also leads to increased chloride reabsorption. Bicarbonate, the level of bicarbonate is in resting saliva is low, but markedly increases with the glandular metabolic. Bicarbonate is the principal salivary buffer. The efficacy of this buffer on dental plaque may be comprised by its thickness and composition. Hydrogen ion salivary pH is low in resting secretions, but it rises up to pH 8.0 in fast flowing saliva, largely reflecting the bicarbonate content. Iodine salivary glands actively transport iodine into saliva, so the concentration is generally higher than that of plasma. Interestingly, salivary glands also tend to concentrate radioactive iodine used for the thyroid assays. The fluoride content of saliva is less than that of serum and is directly correlated with the dietary intake. The fluoride concentration of dental plaque uh, always much greater than that of saliva. The additional fluoride probably being derived from the enamel surface. The thiacinate is present in saliva at higher concentrations than in serum and may complex with the bacteriostatic lactoperoxidase system. Calcium. The calcium content of some individual saliva is approximately double that of product saliva. Probably contributes to the marked prevalence of calculus on the lingual aspect of the mandibular incisors. The concentration of calcium in whole saliva decreases with increasing salivary flow. This probably results from the increased protein contribution in rapid salivary flow rates. The principal salivary calcium phosphate salts include dicalcium phosphate, dihydrate, octocalcium. Dicalcium phosphate and hydroxyapatite homeostasis between these salts is assisted by two salivary acidic peptides, one rich in tyrosine and another rich in proline. These acidic peptides maintain saliva as a supersaturated calcium and phosphate solution, tending to prevent enamel demineralization in addition to facilitating enamel remineralization. Calculus formation probably reflects interference with this process. Phosphate, almost all salivary phosphate is inorganic. The concentration decreases with increased flow rates. In general, total protein, amylase, and sodium bicarbonate concentrations increase with the increasing salivary flow rates. Amylase और sodium bicarbonate concentrations के हैं salivary flow rates को increase करती हैं. Potassium and possibly fluoride concentrations do not change with the increasing salivary flow rate. Potassium fluoride concentrations के हैं salivary flow rates को increase नहीं करती. Phosphate, urea, amino acids, uric acid, ammonia, sodium, albumin, and magnesium concentrations decrease with increasing salivary flow. Fluoride, calcium, and protein-bound carbohydrate concentrations fall at first and then slowly increase with increasing salivary flow rates. Composition the effect is affecting salivary flow rate. One is the terminal variation. Protein concentrations high in the afternoon. Sodium and chloride concentrations are in early hours of the morning. Calcium concentration is more at night. Calcium and phosphate concentrations are stable during the day. Protein concentrations can high in the afternoon. Sodium और chloride concentrations क्या है early hours of the morning. Calcium concentration कब होगी ज़्यादा is more at night. Calcium and phosphate concentration are stable during day. Duration of stimulus if gland are stimulated for longer than 3 minutes concentration of is reduced. Nature of stimulus. Difference in stimulus causes variation in salivary composition. For example, salt is stimulates are higher protein content. Sugar stimulate leads to increased amylase content. Dietary factors, long-term dieting does not have a significant effect on salivary composition. Glandular activity is influenced by the mechanical factors, for example, new denture insertion. जब आप नया डेंचर लगाते हैं उसकी वजह से क्या है आपकी डाइट चेंजेस आ जाती है ठीक long term diet changes does not have significant effect on salivary composition. Other activities influenced by mechanical factors. These are plasma concentrations, amino acids, calcium, potassium, urea, and uric acid. Salivary concentrations are correlated with those in plasma, along with those of chloride and sodium, in addition to those of cortisol. Aldosterone results in increased sodium resorption in the striated tract. आपके स्लाइविक फ्लो पर हार्मोनल इन्फ्लुएंस कैसे होगी एंडोस्टेरॉन क्या है रिजल्ट इन इंक्रीज सोडियम resorption. Antidiuretic hormone facilitates water resorption by the striated duct cells. Other hormones, both testosterone and thyroxine, result in increased salivary secretions. In local hormone, bradykinin and keratin result in the increased salivary secretion, reflecting in dilation. Most important topic is functions क्या है? One is the digestive function. Every amylase acts on the polysaccharide starch and glycogen maltose formed as the protein may be formed by oral bacteria. The effect of this on caries ingestion is still being studied due to rapid ingestion of food digestion of starch continues in stomach. Second is the lubrication. It keeps the hard and soft oral surfaces moist and helps in speech mastication and swallowing. Water and the mucus glycoprotein constituents of saliva helps in the bolus formation and lubrication for movement of oral tissue against each other. Saliva has elastic properties. This can be demonstrated by the draw out to thread of saliva, which is typical of a viscoelastic fluid or the spin bracket phenomenon. First, क्या हो गया function? Second is the that is the dilution and clearance brings about dilution and clearance substance induced into mouth by swallowing or spitting. Potentially harmful substances like sugars and black acid are there. Fourth is the buffering. The buffering system of saliva are bicarbonate, 85% total buffer capacity. Saliva comes from the bicarbonate system. Phosphate, Z protein, mucin, and urea. As salivary flow increases during a meal, bicarbonate concentrations increase, which makes pH of oral fluids critical for survival of bacteria, uh, decreasing production of acids from food plant. Antibacterial effects. Antibacterial effect is brought about by salivating and which spherical and plaque formation is formed by the selective absorption of salivary glycoproteins. The surface pellicle protects the teeth from chemical and mechanical insult. Also act as a substance for colonization of bacteria. Plaque formation also act as involves incorporation of salivary proteins, which helps in synthesis of intracellular glycans. Water balance dryness of mouth stimulus the thirst center individual consumes more water during vomiting, dehydration, hyperapnea, it produces increasing water hormone reabsorption through steroid drugs. Ninth function is the excretory function. Saliva serves as an important excretory route for several blood components like urea, uric acid, ammonia, and also lead mercury alkaloids, Smith. Salivary anticaries activity. Salivary potential mechanisms are involved in the prevention of dental caries by saliva. One is the increased salivary flow leads to increased carbohydrate clearance from the oral cavity. ये salivary anticaries activity कैसे होगी? वन इज द इंक्रीज द salivary flow. ठीक है, salivary flow increase होगा due to increased carbohydrate clearance from the oral cavity. Second is the salivary component reduce acid form in plaque by promotion of less acidogenic plaque microorganisms that forms weaker acids on carbohydrates fermentation. Salivary bicarbonates buffers acid formed by the carbohydrate fermentation. What is the rate of glycolysis is increased by the salivary urea bicarbonate faster metabolism of carbohydrates. Thus, there is a decreased duration of exposure of animal to critical pH levels. The presence of fluoride increases animal resistance to detoxification. Number six promotes surface mineralization of various lesions by calcium, phosphate, fluoride ions. Saliva promotes microbial clearance from oral cavity, thus decreases plaque formation. Chart salivary functions. One is the antibacterial, digestion, mineralization, lubrication, and viscoelastic, tissue coating, antifungal, antiviral, and antibacterial में क्या होगा amylases, histines, histamines, mucins and peroxidase. Antiviral में क्या होगा histines and mucins. Antifungal में क्या है histines, histidines, and tissue coating amylases, histines, mucins, proline, proteins, starch, uh, statins. In buffering carbonic anhydrases, statins, digestion में कौन से enzymes होंगे amylases, mucins, lipase, mineralization, cystatins, histatins, proline, rich proteins, and statins. Lubrication and viscoelastic mucins and statins. Statins. uh, eight changes. सैवा के eight changes. सैवा का flow कैसे होता है? The aging salivary glands are known to undergo structural changes. Number one is the lobule structure becoming less ordered. The acini weigh more in size and eventually atrophy. Intralobular ducts become more prominent and the percentage of fibroadipose tissue increases. And क्या होगा? Lobule structure becomes less ordered. Acini vary more in size and eventually atrophy. Intralobular ducts become more prominent and percentage of fibroadipose tissue increase. Changes in the salivary glands, mandibular parotid less and minor salivary glands. Shrinkage of cells, dilation of ducts, oncocytic transformation, increased adiposity, fibrosis, focal microcalcification with the obstruction, chronic inflammation. क्वेश्चन जो है आपने डिफाइंड टर्म्स में और डिफाइंड आ जाता है 0.5 नंबर का भी क्वेश्चन होता है, 1 का भी होता है. Are the eight changes in the salivary gland? Formation and secretion of saliva. Two stages of saliva formation. First stage, primary saliva is produced by the secretory and pacifies the isotonic most of the organic components and water. Second stage, primary saliva is modified as it passes steatic and absorption and secretion of the electrocyte. Clinical consideration. Saliva कम हो क्या salivary glands में नंबर वन इज द कॉमन जो है जीरोस्टोमिया. क्या कॉजेज हो सकती हैं? ड्रग्स, सेंट्रल और पेरिफेरल इनहिबिशन ऑफ salivary. ड्रग्स की वजह से सेंट्रल और पेरिफेरल इनहिबिशन हो जाती है salivary secretion की. Destruction of salivary gland, radiotherapy to agent and region, head and neck region, chemotherapy, bone marrow transplant, autoimmune disease, Sjögren's syndrome, invasion of lymphocytes, and destruction of epithelial cells, psychological factors. Xerostomia causes क्या हो सकती है? नंबर वन इज द ड्रग्स जो इफेक्ट कर सकते हैं सेंट्रल और पेरिफेरल इनहिबिशन ऑफ salivary secretion. ठीक है, डिस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ salivary gland, उसमें क्या आ जाता है? रेडियो थेरापी टू हेड एंड नेक रीजन, कीमोथेरेपी आ जाती है, बोन मैरो ट्रांसप्लांट आ जाता है, ऑटोइम्यून डिजीजेस आ जाते हैं, invasions of lymphocytes and destruction of epithelial cells and psychological factors. Xerostomia, dryness of mouth. फाइबर secretion जो है वो बहुत कम हो जाती है. This is the xerostomia means dryness of mouth. आपकी secretions प्रॉपर नहीं होगी, जैसे आपको डिफरेंट प्रॉब्लम. Loss of protective effect of salivary buffers proteins and weakens increase susceptibility to infection. आपका जो saliva कम हो जाएगा तो क्या है, आपको ज़्यादा इंक्रीज हो जाएगा रेट ऑफ द इन्फेक्शंस. डिफिकल्टी एंड पेन ऑन ईटिंग, स्पीच एंड swallowing. ठीक है, saliva का फंक्शन क्या है? आपकी lubrication, आपकी जो बोलस जो आप नवाला लेते हैं उसको क्या कहते हैं? मॉइस्ट करते हैं. ठीक है, temporary saliva, oral pharmacosymptomatic drugs like pilocarpine. Second is the siluria. Refers to excess saliva protection. Just इंडिया में क्या था? ड्राइनेस ऑफ माउथ, सलाइवा सेक्रेशंस कम हो जाती है। इसमें क्या है? To excessive excess saliva protection, saliva protection ज़्यादा हो जाती है। कॉजेज क्या है? गैस्ट्रो इंटेशन इरिटेंट्स, ड्रेस पाइलोकार्पिन, cerebrovascular accident, patient with a severe neurologic difficult, patient who have undergoes extensive oral surgical procedures. जीरोस्टोमिया में क्या है? साइनस सिक्रीशंस कम हो जाती हैं। यूरिया में क्या है? रिफर्स टू द एक्सेस सलाइवा प्रोटेक्शन। कॉजेस क्या हो जाएंगे? गैस्ट्रोइंटेस्टाइनल इरिटेंस हो जाएंगे, ड्रग्स की वजह से हो सकता है, सेरेब्रोवास्कुलर एक्सीडेंट से पेशेंट विद न्यूरोलॉजिक डिफिशियंसीज हो सकती हैं, अंडरगो एक्सटेंसिव ओरल सर्जिकल प्रोसीजर्स। Blockage of duct, silently stones, mostly is a submandibular gland, was plugging in minor salivary glands due to trauma. Salivary um, stones, ठीक है, mostly in submandibular gland, mucus plugging in minor salivary glands due to trauma. ये changes क्या है? Parenchyma are replaced by adipose tissue, saliva protection, resting saliva, unstimulated in the normal range, while stimulated saliva is less. वायरल मम्स, क्या आपने मम्स का नाम सुना होगा? इस वजह से होते हैं आपके ब्लड ग्लैंड। वायरल मम्स में क्या होता है कि बैक्टीरियल इन्फेक्शन हो जाता है और क्या है, पेनफुल स्वेलिंग होती है। दिस इज द पेप्टिक ग्लैंड, स्वेलिंग हो जाती है और ये बहुत पेनफुल कंडीशन होती है। एंडोक्राइन, ठीक है, से आपके क्या है, डायबिटीज आ जाती है, ब्लॉटेड ग्लैंड स्वेलिंग भी आती है, salivary flow is reduced, changes in salivary proteins. Autoimmune diseases may cause destruction of salivary glands and reduced salivary flow. Sjögren's syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, graft versus diseases. Patients with adrenal disease may have the altered electrocyte composition. Deficiency syndrome, decreased flow rates, lower levels of amino acids in saliva, rotted enlargement, lymphoadenopathy, and lymphoepitheliosis. Genetic diseases, cystic fibrosis, sodium and chloride concentrations are increased, and mucus secreting glands may develop mucus plug. Benign and malignant tumors. Saliva as a diagnostic aid कैसे हेल्प कर सकता है ओरल डिजीजेस में? हाई रिस्क कैरिस पेशेंट, पेशेंट सस्टेनेबल टू कैंडिडाइज, diagnostic aid for clinical problems, psychological problems, smoking, poisoning. Systemic diseases affecting saliva, Sjögren's syndrome, cystic fibrosis, The right hormones determination, functional efficiency of workers, and in case of defect in hypothermic pituitary ovarian axis, pregnant status, ovulation time. Monitoring of certain drugs that exhibit constrained saliva plasma ratio, for example, uh, carbamazine, theophylline. Slavic gland and functions of saliva are most important in this chapter. Xerostomia, important. So, saliva. Tell me, what is that saliva? Saliva आज आपने पढ़ा है कि what is the saliva? Saliva है क्या? What is the saliva? Composition. The composition of saliva. आप लोग को समझ आते हैं कि क्या पढ़ा है saliva में? बस मेरे को सिर्फ मुमकिन है। ऑर्डर क्या है आपका 94 टू 99.5% है। ऑर्गेनिक में जो है आपके ग्लाइकोप्रोटीन्स आ जाते हैं, एंजाइम्स आ जाते हैं। एंजाइम्स के नेम्स आपको आने चाहिए, ठीक है। एल्फा लाइजोजाइम, लैक्टोपेरोक्सीडेज, कैलेक्ट्रिन, एसिड फॉस्फेट्स, ठीक है। फिर न्यूक्लियस आ जाता है, लैक्टोफेरिन आ जाता है, ब्लड क्लॉटिंग फैक्टर्स आ जाते हैं, हार्मोन्स आ जाते हैं, और सेक्रेटरी अमीनो ग्लोबिन्स आ जाते हैं। और इन ऑर्गेनिक में आपके क्या आ जाते हैं, सोडियम, कैल्शियम, क्लोराइड, बाइकार्बोनेट, फॉस्फेट, पोटेशियम, ठीक है। लेस अमाउंट जो है आपकी फ्लोराइड, मैग्नीशियम और आयोडाइड प्रेजेंट होती है। जो आपके पीएच क्या है, साइवा पीएच क्या है, साइवा पीएच क्या होगी। फंक्शंस ऑफ द सलाइवा, सलाइवा के मेन फंक्शंस क्या हैं। सलाइवा के फंक्शंस क्या हैं। मॉइस्चर फूड आपके लुब्रिकेशन में आ जाता है, ठीक है। जब आप कोई बोलस या नवाला लेते हैं तो वो आपको क्या कहते हैं, उसको मॉइस्ट करता है, ठीक है। एंटीबैक्टीरियल इफेक्ट होता है, ठीक है। कैविटी, यस। आप इसको एक दफ़ा जो है आप इसको ओरल फिजियोलॉजी की बुक में से पढ़ें। अदरवाइज अगर आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम होता है तो फिर नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में इसको हम डिस्कस करेंगे, ठीक है। मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट चैप्टर है आपका, और इसमें से आपका ओरल हिस्टोलॉजी और ओरल फिजियोलॉजी दोनों में क्वेश्चन आता है। के फंक्शन आ जाते हैं, एंटीबैक्टीरियल आ जाता है, एंटीवायरल आ जाता है, एंटी फंगल आ जाता है, टिश्यू कोटिंग आ जाता है, लुब्रिकेशन एंड विजो इलास्टिसिटी आ जाती है, मिनरलाइजेशन आ जाती है, एंड डाइजेशन, ठीक है। ये चेंजेस क्या होंगी। व्हाट आर द एज चेंजेस। एज चेंजेस क्या होंगी। गुड। नेक्स्ट टाइम इसको हम डिस्कस करेंगे, टाइम फिनिश हो चुका है। अदरवाइज अगर आपको कोई प्रॉब्लम है, आपको समझ आगे। ओके, ओके, अल्लाह हाफिज़।